What if the piney smell of a forest could measurably lower stress and nudge your immune system in a positive way? In this episode of Nature Gut Brain, we break down phytoncides, the volatile compounds that trees release, and how they may affect stress physiology and even your immune system. Stay tuned. So let's define phytoncides. So these are volatile organic compounds that plants, especially trees, emit to communicate and protect themselves. So some are called alpha-pinene and beta-pinene and D-limonene, and these are the crisp, resinous notes that you smell in pine, cedar, cypress or eucalyptus forests. Now, emissions rise with light and temperature, which is why forests often feel alive on warm, bright days. Scientists have mapped these emissions for decades in atmospheric models. Now, the word phytoncide comes from the Greek phyto, meaning plant, and the Latin cide, meaning to kill. The term was coined in 1928 by Russian biochemist Boris Tokin to describe the natural chemicals plants release to defend themselves against bacteria, fungi, and other organisms. And ironically, while these compounds are lethal to harmful microbes, research suggests that they can be incredibly good for us, potentially boosting our immune function, reducing stress hormones, and even improving mood and sleep. So how could forest scents change our biology? Well, there are several potential pathways. First, there's the olfactory limbic pathway. So when we breathe in terpenes from trees, scent receptors in our nose send rapid signals to brain regions that control emotions, attention, and stress responses. In human experiments, inhaling Hinoki cypress leaf oil lowers activity in the prefrontal cortex, a brain pattern linked to relaxation, and shifts the nervous system towards a parasympathetic rest and digest state. So this calming shift can widen blood vessels, slow heart rate, and some think that this process then lowers blood pressure. There's a second pathway, immunomodulation, and this is just a fancy word for regulating the immune system in your body. So field studies suggest that spending several hours in a forest can boost the activity of our body's what's called natural killer cells, or NK cells. And these are a type of white blood cell that patrol for viruses and cancerous cells. Now, exposure to these phytoncides from trees may also increase the production of powerful defense proteins inside your body called perforin and granzyme, which essentially punch holes in infected or abnormal cells, so the immune system can then destroy them more easily. Now, emerging research suggests phytoncides may also promote deeper, more restorative sleep, and one key pathway seems to be through what's called GABA, or gamma-aminobutyric acid, and this is the brain's main calming neurotransmitter. So in a mouse study, inhalation of cedrol, a phytoncide from cedar and other conifers, increased non-REM sleep duration and reduced sleep latency. So brain analyses revealed enhanced activity at particular GABA receptors, and these act like biological brakes that slow down neuronal firing in the brain and promote relaxation. And this is the same pathway targeted by many anti-anxiety and sedative medications, but in this case triggered naturally by plant-emitted compounds. Now, while we can't assume the exact same effects in humans without more trials, it raises the possibility that spending time in phytoncide-rich environments, such as forests or gardens with aromatic trees, might help the body and the mind transition more smoothly into restful sleep. In one landmark Japanese study, healthy adults spent just 2 nights in a forest retreat. When researchers analysed their blood, they found that natural killer cell activity, a part of the body's first line of defence against viruses and tumours, had jumped by around 50%. Even more impressive, this immune boost was still detectable a full week later. In a follow-up study, where participants repeated forest visits over several weekends, the natural killer cell activity remained elevated for up to 30 days. Now, air sampling at the sites revealed airborne phytoncides from the surrounding trees, and the scientists believe that these aromatic plant compounds were one of the main drivers of the effect. It's a really cool example of a simple lifestyle exposure, i.e. breathing forest air, potentially producing a measurable and sustained boost to our immune defences. In other words, the trees might be lending us a little of their own natural resilience. Now, it's important to keep emphasising that the mechanisms are still being clarified, so this is not a medical treatment. Beyond the immune system, there's a whole suite of benefits showing up in the data. So in meta-analyses, so these are studies that pull results from dozens of trials, find that spending time in forests tend to lower stress hormones like cortisol, bring down blood pressure, and improve heart rate variability, a sign of a more balanced, resilient nervous system. Now, these changes are exactly what you'd expect when your body shifts out of that fight, flight or freeze mode and into the rest and digest mode, so that parasympathetic mode. So it seems that even short exposures could have measurable effects. In small laboratory studies, people who inhaled the scent of conifer oils, the same aromatic compounds you'd breathe in on a walk through a pine forest, for instance, they showed a decreased activity in their prefrontal cortex, part of the brain that works hardest when we're problem solving or under stress. Participants also reported feeling calmer and more relaxed. So put together, the picture is consistent. Slower heart rates, calmer minds, and a nervous system that's dialed down from high alert. So how much is enough? What are the exposure levels that we need? So for general well-being, a large UK study suggests that people who spend at least 120 minutes a week in nature report better health and life satisfaction compared with those who don't, regardless of how that time is split. For phytoncide specific effects, the natural killer cell work used multi-hour forest sessions over 1 to 2 days. So that's a good starting template if you can swing it. We need more research on short duration exposure effects. Personally, I try to visit a forest at least a couple of times a week if I can, for a good hour or so as well. Here's a practical, evidence-informed protocol that you can try this week. So pick your green. Conifer-rich areas like pine, cedar, cypress, spruce or eucalyptus stands are really good. Warmer, sunnier conditions generally mean more terpene emissions. What about a time target? So if you really can, try and aim for 2 to 3 hours in one session. I know that sounds like quite a lot, but it's really beneficial. So if you can, try and spend a good amount of time in a forest. And a slow walking pace as well. So in terms of breathing cadence, try around 4 to 6 breaths per minute for a few minutes every half hour, and inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose as well for an extended exhale. And this will help nudge your parasympathetic tone, and this pairs well with the olfactory input as well, so the smells in the air. Try to go quietly and undistracted as well, so put your phone on airplane mode, engage the senses, the smell, touch the bark of the trees, and notice those resinous scents in the air. And there's an aftercare process you can try as well, so hydrate, try a light plant-forward meal, and a gentle evening wind down to let that autonomic shift consolidate. Now, if you can't reach a forest, you could try short olfactory sessions, so 5 to 10 minutes, with authentic hinoki, cypress or pine essential oils, and these can reproduce some of the relaxation signals seen in lab studies. Use a diffuser in a well-ventilated room, and less is more. A few quick safety notes on the latter, so if you have asthma or allergies or migraine sensitivity, if you're pregnant or you have chemical sensitivities, then you could start with a brief low-dose exposure and good ventilation. Some observational work links higher monoterpene exposure to airway changes in sensitive populations. So really know your body and consult your clinician if you're unsure before doing any of these interventions. So here's a summary of why this likely works. So what's the big picture? When you breathe in tree-released compounds like alpha-pinene or citrusy limonene, your smell receptors send signals straight to your brain's emotional and stress control hubs. That likely calms overactive brain circuits and tips your body into the rest and digest mode, lowering stress hormones and slowing the heart. Being in a forest adds another layer, so fewer distractions and less mental clutter, which deepens that relaxation response. And this is a shift that scientists can see in heart rate variability and cortisol readings. But it's not just about feeling calmer, so repeated multi-hour forest time has been linked to boosting your immune system. So think about those natural killer cells, and these act like security guards against virus-infected and tumour cells. These cells even ramp up their internal armoury and produce those special proteins, so perforin and granzyme, and these punch holes in enemy cells and trigger their self-destruct. Now, some experiments suggest that terpenes may also nudge the brain chemicals like GABA, which helps quiet neural activity and potentially promotes better sleep. So the exact pathways are still being mapped, but the pattern is clear. So forest air is refreshing, but it's also carrying biologically active molecules that could be tuning both mind and body. So yes, the forest smell isn't just, poetic, it's chemistry that your brain and immune system react to. So try the protocol, log how you feel, and if this helped or if you found it interesting, please share it with someone who needs a calm day. And I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. And please sign up for my free newsletter over at www.jakemrobinson.com. And remember, stay wild inside and out. If you'd like to learn more about how the invisible members of our community influence our health and well-being, I've written a book called Invisible Friends, so please order that if you'd like to learn how microbes shape our health and our well-being and the world around us. Then hopefully you'll get some good value from this book. I've also written another book called Tree Wilding, and this really goes into the interconnectedness of ourselves with forests, how we can restore global forests, and our relationship with nature. My third popular science book, The Nature of Pandemics, and why protecting biodiversity is key to human survival. Now this will be out in October 2025. See you next time.